what do the drama YouTubers say? Like, gamers, I can't believe this is so serious situation. I'm sorry, I can't take myself seriously. As much as like I know this is eventually going to become drama bait, I think this is genuinely something that's incredibly important to talk about, especially because I think there's been a lot of misinformation across the general gaming space about the voice actor situation, and like people are blaming parties that like are really not in charge of a lot of the stuff that's been happening. I'm going to explain a lot of information at you in a short amount of time, but I have to put some stipulations up here first, okay? I am not associated with SAG-AFTRA or Hoyoverse, okay? All of these opinions are my own opinion. I am a content creator that yaps a lot and talks a lot about the voice actors in video games, and I've been following the voice actor scene for a hot minute, just a very long time. But I have previously worked in an industry that required me to work closely with those within SAG-AFTRA and be part of a very similar union. But that's all I can really say about that before I end up doxing myself, so I'm just not going to say anything about that. If there are corrections in this video that people bring up, I will make a pinned comment, okay? Because I do not want to spread any more misinformation than there already is.
And hi, you're also going to hear me, Editor Eve, occasionally pop in and out because as I'm editing this, all of this information is being updated in real time with other voice actors putting their own voice into the mix, and I want to highlight as many of them as I possibly can. I will also need to add extra addendums to the things that I said during stream, just to add a little bit more information and a little bit more nuance to make things a little bit more clear, because this was a 3-hour VOD that I am now condensing into a few minutes, so I want to try and explain things as succinctly as possible. But before we get into everything, I would like to implore the comments to please take everything with nuance. Not everything in this situation is going to be this guy good and this guy bad. That is simply not how the world works. I know nuance is not something that is easily done on the internet. However, this is affecting a lot of people's livelihoods, and I want to be as careful as I can while talking about this information, especially because information about the SAG-AFTRA strike has been watered down so much, especially within Hoyoverse spaces. Any sources that I use will be in the description as well as displayed on screen, and any of my additional thoughts via text.
I feel like most of chat is international, or at least not specifically based in the US. So I'm going to explain what unions and SAG-AFTRA is in general. This is a very broad explanation, and I could go further into depth. However, I don't think you want to be sitting here for union labor laws for 3 hours, okay? So SAG-AFTRA is a combination of two labor unions representing the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Arts. They were originally made to cover television and radio, but they also now cover industries like voice acting and live theater. So what is a labor union? A labor union is an organization that's created by workers for a specific company or industry that collectively join up in order to negotiate with higher-ups of the company for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. The history of that is that it stemmed out of the industrial era when there weren't many labor laws or protections for workers, which resulted in things like child labor, basically being fired on the spot with no severance pay, being forced to work extra hours without any pay, stuff like that. Unions are there to negotiate with higher-ups in order for that to be prevented. In the 1800s, used to hire children because they could get their arms in places where adults could not. Fingers and arms were lost. Exactly. Yeah, a lot of child labor laws were from unions. There is a reason why if you are a kid, or at least younger than 16, you have to get paperwork filled out so that you can work, and that is due to unions. Unions are also the reason why we have a 40-hour work week maximum in the US. So labor unions have done a lot throughout the history of the American workforce. That is the very, very general oversimplification of unions. So why do actors want to be a part of a union? Currently, what the voice actor strike is about language and usage for major protections against AI. It is something that a lot of voice actors have been asking. It is so that their voices aren't used without their consent for different projects via AI. And because AI is such a new thing, they just want general protections over it. So that's the biggest thing. Actors also want to be union. It will guarantee that the actor gets paid for the work that they're doing, but also a minimum of how much they're paid. It basically stabilizes the pay. I can't exactly speak a lot about the voice acting industry because I'm not super in there, but from what I've personally seen, a lot of it is gig work economy. And as someone who is currently working in the gig work economy, there is no guarantee that you'll get a certain amount of pay per week. It will be dependent on how much work there is. If like for some reason the employer doesn't get, say, like work for a month, you just don't get called in for a month. There's no guarantee that you'll be paid compared to like corporate settings, you know, where corporate is just like, I will always get 40 hours a week. I can do overtime if you're under that. I will get salary if you get salary for that. There is a steady amount that comes comes in through corporate, there's not the same treatment for gig work economies. But also, the union will also provide health insurance and pensions, which, again, gig work economy, that's not guaranteed. You don't get guaranteed health insurance. You don't get guaranteed pensions. You don't get guaranteed 401k, which are things that are necessary in general for your future. Paying out of pocket for health insurance in America specifically is incredibly expensive, which is why a lot of workers will turn to their companies and ask for health insurance. The gig economy does not exactly have this unless you are under union. The main reason for a union is the protection against future possibilities where companies suddenly decide to change policy or ideology. The union can strike or pull their support for the company legally and will not be disciplined against. Whereas if you aren't in the union, the company decides to screw you legally and there's not much you can do about it. Exactly. So say I'm currently not part of a union and I work under a gig economy. I get paid, let's just say I get paid $50 an hour for the work that I do, right? I don't get paid $50 an hour. That'd be a dream. What if, I don't know, the CEO says, nah, actually, I'm going to make you get paid $25 an hour, just randomly, you know? If I was a part of the union would negotiate for me and be like, hey, that's dumb. You can't just change this person's pay. You have to go into negotiations and talk about the pay. However, because I'm part of the gig economy and I'm non-union, they could legally do that. They could change my contract. And it's either you sign the contract that you are now being paid 50% less or get fired. Those are your options. This is why unions are so important. So how does joining a union work? Usually what happens is that the worker joins a job, you know, and they start working at the company, right? Not under union as of yet, but they start working. And then depending on the union, they will eventually have to join the union after working at that specific location or working a specific amount of times. When I had to work under union, I worked under that company for, I think, around 6 months. And then after 6 months, I got a letter saying like, hey, you need to join the union in order to continue working here. And that is what I did. So what happens if the actor doesn't want to join the union? The answer is you basically can't work there. However, there is something called the Taft-Hartley. What the Taft-Hartley is within SAG is that it's a report that documents when a non-union worker works on a union project, and it has to be submitted as a form of documentation by the actual company themselves. And it has to be within 15 days from the performer's initial work day. Each actor gets 3 Taft-Hartleys in their lifetime. And then once you use up those 3 Taft-Hartleys, you are no longer allowed to work on union projects until you become union.
So the 3 Taft-Hartleys are triggered in a very specific way, and Ben Diskin goes into a lot more depth in his thread. Basically, you join a union project as a non-union worker, and the producers on the game will sign a Taft-Hartley for you. What this does is give you a 30-day Taft-Hartley grace period, which within that time, you can work non-union and union projects during those 30 days with absolutely no issue. The next time you book a union job as a non-union performer is the next time this grace period triggers. And then after that second grace period, you are required to join SAG-AFTRA in order to continue working on union games.
So why would an actor not want to join the union? There are a lot of reasons. One of the reasons could be it is expensive. I believe Zach Aguilar talked about this on his stream when he was talking about the voice actor strike.
But at the time when I joined back in, way back when, it's like $3,000. $3,000 that was everything I had at that time. That was like my entire bank account.
And then $236 for annual dues. And if you are someone who is like, say, a hobbyist in voice acting, that might seem crazy. And the people that you see, or at least the bigger actors that make millions of dollars, that's not everyone in SAG. Most people that are in SAG are people that are just trying to make a living, bro. People that are just trying to stay above the poverty line. There is also the consideration is that some actors just don't want to join the union because they work internationally. And a lot of like translation or international voice actors don't want to join it because it depends on their hiring process for that type of work. This is the main, yes, exactly. This is the main issue that stems for Hoyo. I'll explain that as well. How is this tied to Hoyoverse?
They're currently using voice actors based in the US that are either non-union or part of SAG-AFTRA, which means if they are part of SAG-AFTRA, they cannot work during the strike in Hoyoverse's non-union games.
Just a clarification, because there was a big thing about Formosa for a hot minute. Recording studios do not determine the unionization. Hoyo does. The SAG-AFTRA strike specifically is not towards Hoyo. It is directed at very specific companies. Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, and ZZZ, all those games are non-union projects. So So they're currently not tied to any SAG-AFTRA agreement. So like say if Hoyoverse wanted to make a SAG-AFTRA tied game, I don't know, some new HSR thing, spin-off thing that they want to do. If they make that under SAG, that specific game can be under SAG agreement while HSR is not. However, this is the big nuance part. If Hoyo were to sign the SAG interim agreement right now for any one of these 3 games, one of the requirements in the interim agreement is to eventually switch all of their talent to SAG-AFTRA actors. And some people may not want to do that. It's basically a stalemate. Sign the interim, lose half of the non-union VA. Don't sign the interim, lose half of the union VA. Which is why I think Hoyoverse was trying to wait it out for a long time.
Clarification. It's not like all the non-union actors get removed once a project gets flipped union. As Eddie Carrera, a sound engineer who's worked on multiple different projects in the gaming space, has pointed out, Hoyoverse would still be able to Taft-Hartley a lot of these non-union actors, as well as giving them an access point if they would like to join the union if they were to sign the agreement.
But don't unions protect actors? It is a bad thing to sign. I guess that's what is confusing me. So here's the thing. I will always be on the side of you should sign the interim agreement because it means that these voice actors will have AI protections. This is a give and take because again, AI protection is important, but it seems like Hoyo will lose more money if they do sign the interim. I don't understand this part of non-union actors have to be part of the union if they do sign it. Like, why is there such a big problem? So a lot of the reasoning behind that is because of exclusivity. I could not work in the industry that I used to work in if I did not join the union. That industry that I was a part of, it is something that is sought after for a lot of people. Exclusivity is always the first part of a radicalized movement. Well, a big part because you need to carve out a space. Exactly. And that's what SAG's doing. You have a very exclusive space that people want to join, and that is how the union gets its power. So, what happened recently? Soldier 11, Emery Chase, and Von Lycaon, Nicholas Thurkettle were both replaced in this newest patch 1.6 in Zenless Zone 0 because they were unwilling to perform work not covered by the SAG interim agreement. I'll read what Emery said. I was replaced as Soldier 11 because I am unwilling to perform work not covered by the SAG interim agreement during the strike for AI protection, an outcome of which will determine the future for our industry. I'd like to clarify that there's a difference between being struck and not being on an interim agreement. Union projects that began work prior to the strike and non-union projects are not struck. Hoyoverse, Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone 0, Hawkeye Star Rail. These projects are not struck. This is not being on the interim agreement. They also do not offer the union-enforced AI rights we're fighting for. They go into the fact that a lot of actors are choosing to withhold work from those specific projects because that will help strengthen the union's cause or fight. Nicholas Thurkettle, same reason. He also took a stand and said, I do not want to work under a contract that does not have AI protections. And unfortunately, that meant both of them got booted. Also, along the lines of this, there has been a lot of misinformation. There was a screenshot of Nick saying that like, hey, Lycaon's going to be appearing in some of the script. The ZZZ team's curious if anything can be offered to make you more comfortable recording at the time. Sadly, if not, they will have to move on to other options for the character. This was a screenshot that was presented. This is fake because one, if you look at Nicholas Thurkettle's actual social media, Nick does not have a Discord. Two, you can find out that it's fake because there's no timestamp. The real reason we know it's fake is because who the fuck is using the Discord Nebula theme? That's crazy. There's also Sam Slade, who is the voice actor for Soldier 0 and Anby. A lot of people were speculating that she was the Soldier 11's new voice actor. She is not the new voice actor. They are not announced unless they are officially announced by Hoyoverse or by ZZZ. We do not know the voice actors, okay? The last time they have announced the official voice actors for Zenless Zone 0 specifically was when they released the game. That is where we saw, oh, Von Lycaon is Nicholas Thurkettle. Soldier 11 is Emery Chase. You can speculate all you want. However, going in and tagging a voice actor saying, oh my God, are you this voice actor? If they say anything about it, they are potentially breaking a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, and you can legally get in trouble for saying, hey, I'm the voice of this. If the official company did not announce that they are the voice actor, you can get sued. Most voice actors and most people in general do not want to deal with that. I can't believe people lie on the internet because people want attention. That is unfortunately the truth. That's why you have to scrutinize things. It is why we look for direct sources from the person that is talking, like Sam, like Nick, like Emery. So this is what Sound Cadence said. From top to bottom, Sound Cadence Studios is a community of artists. As concerns have been raised regarding how we work with our voice actors, we wanted to take this opportunity to clarify where we stand and how we operate. Every contract at our studio features explicit AI protections regardless of union status. Much of our staff are actors themselves and could not in good conscience offer other performers work we would not be willing to take. The decision to recast talent on any project is not made lightly. While sometimes our hands are tied as to what we can communicate and when, we understand how personally actors take their roles and will always want to ensure no one is ever blindsided. Our studio has and will continue to honor the legacy, casting on all projects we've inherited whenever possible, and always reach out to actors to reprise their roles before investigating any other options. We respect the decisions of all actors in navigating the ongoing strike and fully support SAG-AFTRA and AI negotiations. The passion of fan communities for video game characters and the people who bring them to life is further evident that real human actors matter, and we will continue to bring voices to our clients' projects in the most human way possible. I will say, this is HR speak. This is to protect any legal issues at the moment. So again, it's still up in the air. I do like the fact that they did point out that they reach out to their voice actors to reprise their roles before investigating any other options. Hey, Lycaon's case kind of confuses me because on one hand, he states that he wanted protection and didn't do the job because of it. The other hand, he states that he would have been available all the time. Did I miss something here? No, I don't think he missed something there. So here's the thing. Personally, I can only speculate because I'm not Nicholas Thurkettle. I do not know what happened with these contracts, you know? I think both statements can be true at the same time. I genuinely think he found out about this replacement the day we all got the patch out. Genuinely. However, I think also that Hoyoverse decided that because Emery and Nicholas Thurkettle were going to stand on these agreements, they decided to make the choice to switch to different voice actors. Isn't Sound Cadence Studio owned by Amber Lee Collins? Yes. This is not Amber Lee Collins speaking. This is Sound Cadence Studios, the corporation, speaking. I can't imagine them making intentional moves against the VA. I don't think so either. And this is where the nuance comes in. I don't think they intentionally wanted anyone to not be in the loop. I just think miscommunication happened, and now we are at this point. Personally, from what I can see as an outside participant, as someone who is not Nicholas Thurkettle, not Sound Cadence Studios, not Emery Chase, I'm neither of these three people, groups, organizations. I am looking at this from the same place that you are, and we are only looking at this from the outside in. We, as the outside perspective, will only know so much. We can only speculate.
So after Sound Cadence Studios put out that statement, there have been multiple voice actors reblogging it for its credibility and how they personally have not had issues working with SCS. In addition, Chris Dutori, who did voice acting, casting, as well as recording for Zenless Zone Zero in very early content, has come into defense for both Emery as well as Nicholas. I still stand by my original statement saying that both sides were telling the truth. It is just that a lot of miscommunication probably happened.
So, can Hoyo be punished by SAG-AFTRA for recasting Emery Chase and Nicholas Thurkettle? No. Because ZZZ is non-union, it's a non-union project, okay? Legally, unfortunately, they can do this. It's not fair that you're gonna recast them for taking a stand just so that they can be protected under certain contracts. Like, I'm genuinely saying, it is very brave of Emery to be posting like, hey, I was replaced as this character because I was not willing to perform work not covered under the SAG agreement. Because some companies will look at that and be like, okay, I'm not gonna cast you. Because they could have gone the route just like, oh, it was a schedule difference. They're so brave, and I really hope they will be okay. Go support the voice actors themselves. Support their works. Emery has voiced in a lot of things. They also stream. Nicholas Thurkettle is a director. He does a lot of indie films. Important thing to remember is the sacrifice of the union members. As one myself, I know that if I strike, I'm giving up a little in immediate for more in the future. This is where even union members have issues with each other because some don't have a vision for the future and thus don't think it's necessary to fight or strike for what the union is negotiating, when for most of the time, most of the time, the union is negotiating for members. Exactly. I think what Emery and Nicholas did, standing their ground on saying like, hey, I'm not doing this voice acting job because I would want to see AI protections in the contract, is genuinely so brave. They literally lost their jobs for this. And Hoyoverse said, fuck it, we'll just replace you. That's literally what happened. Why would voice actors want to do something like what Emery and Nicholas did? It's in support of the strike. You need more people to hold their ground and say like, hey, we don't want to work unless there is an agreement and AI protections in order for these companies essentially to listen to them. With both union and non-union VAs stating that they want these contracts to be upheld, it'll make it more likely that companies will be more willing to sign the agreement literally just by tiring them out. And honestly, it is a waiting game because the last voice actor strike lasted almost a year. So this is not a short-term thing. This is a very very, very long-term thing in order to protect the future of voice acting. What I think is dangerous about this specific situation is that it sets a very dangerous precedent because Hoyoverse is a huge player in the gacha space. The reason why we got like certain changes within the gacha space was largely influenced by Hoyoverse. And a lot of people, at least a lot of game companies, are copying Hoyoverse's model. I think the biggest issue I have right now is the fact that they saw these two voice actors and said, oh, so you guys aren't willing to do this because of the strike? I'll just replace you then. Do we know what the Hoyos think? Multiple voice actors have been retweeting these two tweets. Sean Chiplock, who is the voice of D-Luke, he currently says, this is likely not the only Hoyoverse project in which actors have been unable to reprise their roles because they are requested to have essential AI protections in place before they could willingly accept work. This is potentially not the only Hoyoverse project to recast over this fact. Emery and Nick are the first confirmed voice actors that said, I got replaced because I was not willing to work without the SAG interim agreement. In my personal opinion, we have already seen this before. This part's speculation. It was not confirmed. Fugue's VA, Hoho's VA, Argenti's VA, Lucy's VA, Sukaku's VA. All of them are unconfirmed that they are related to this strike, but it is very possible that this could have something to do with it. Will the VAs get replaced, like all of them, because of this? Also, no. So depending on the contract with certain actors, they might have different agreements with the studio and Hoyoverse. It seems right now, from what I can see, they tend to be replacing actors that are being highlighted in the story. I do think that Soldier 11 and Lycaon have a very important part in the story because there are characters that are coming up that have backstory tying into these specific characters. So that might be a reason why they got replaced. It could also be the number, since almost all the Genshin voice cast was striking Formosa, and the amount of work renegotiating their contracts wouldn't be worth replacing them. That is true. Think about how much you would have to revoice in the main game, not even counting events that we don't get to see in Genshin after they're gone, but there's already so much. Just from a financial standpoint, they don't want to do it. But also morally, they might not want to do it either. Morally, maybe Genshin really does want to support the voice actors, and they're just like, hey, I don't want to replace y'all. This is worrying for HSR. It is worrying for every game. You know who is possibly at risk? A lot of the Genshin voice actors. So moving to the new studio that is not being struck against will resolve some issues. Whoever's non-union, they can still work on the non-union project. Anyone who is union, however, like Zach Aguilar, who is part of SAG-AFTRA, he cannot work any of his Genshin gigs because as a union member, you are not allowed to work non-union games while the strike is happening. But also, Hawkeye Star Rail, you got both Trailblazers. Rachel Chow, Caleb Yen, Dan Hung, Nicholas Young, Himiko, Chia Court. They are also in danger. There's a possibility that they could be replaced. It does not mean that they will be replaced. It is that there is a possibility, a very dangerous precedent and possibility that they could be replaced. These voices are what made the characters for us. Some of us joined some of these games because of the voice actors. I joined Genshin Impact because Lily Pichu was voicing Sayu. I pulled Tribby because I love Hayden. The fact that they can get replaced is incredibly scary. So you are a Hoyoverse player. How do you want to help the voice actors? There are a few ways you can do it. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, Hoyoverse is a company. It doesn't matter about moral justification. It doesn't matter about justice. It doesn't matter about what's right or what's wrong. Bottom line is, the company needs to stay afloat and they need to make money. You want to hit them where their pockets hurt? That is the best way to make this strike more inconvenient for them. I would suggest not buying Welkins, not buying battle passes. You have the power to talk with your money. If their money is down, they will take notice. Let's be real. Back when they changed Nouvelette's charge attack so that you couldn't spin anymore, the biggest thing about them reverting that decision was people basically in China saying, like, contacting their equivalents of the FTC, saying like, hey, I purchased Nouvelette for this thing, and now I'm not getting that purchase. This is a scam. And that is why they reverted their decision. If you want to make a difference, make your money talk for you. How is me not spending the money will help with the strike? I don't get it. It's not like if their money go down, if they're automatically going to sign the agreement. So it's really not about one specific person. It is about the collective. Strikes work when people work together. It is about the power of the collective and not about the individual. So yes, theoretically, one person not spending money on the game anymore may not hurt their bottom line in the overall scheme of things. However, if a lot of people stop spending money, that's gonna hurt. Filling out the surveys, talking about it, making noise about it. Be louder than the people complaining about artifact loadouts. I say this as someone who's been complaining about artifact loadouts for the 300th time. Be louder than those people. Inform people about the information. Surveys are out of the question. I'm sorry, they never listen to the surveys. They do have a sorting function to get a general idea of where all the surveys are doing, making them a graphic. The more you can skew that graphic to show that you don't agree or dislike something, the more they have to address it. Exactly. You have to start talking about it. That's how we got the freaky underground maps eventually. Yeah, like if people are complaining, or at least willing to complain more about it, it's going to be on people's radars more.
I would also like to add that officially on the SAG-AFTRA website, if you would like to support the strike as a content creator or as a general player, the best way to do so is to follow the information on SAG-AFTRA's website as well as their social media accounts. However, I'd also like to add the National Association of Voice Actors also provides a lot more information about the SAG-AFTRA strike, as well as following your favorite voice actors on their social media platforms. And normally they will talk about this stuff. A lot of people are very active about speaking up during this strike, and I was able to get most of my information from those voice actors through these sites, as well as doing my own personal research.
The number of people still don't know that there even is a strike is shocking. I mean, to be fair, if you don't play in English, you're not going to know the strike is happening. If you do not follow voice actors, you're not going to know the strike is happening. All you're going to know, because officially, via Hoyoverse, all they have said is, 1, scheduling issues. 2, these characters are not going to be voiced. Those are the only things that you get information out of. It is a very tough situation on all sides. And that is why a lot of people don't talk about it genuinely, because 1, you're going to get random weirdos on the internet being like, well, actually, I think all the voice actors are like actually not like willing to work on this stuff. And I think they don't deserve to voice this character. No, that's not the reason why they're not voicing their characters. You know how much these voice actors love their characters? Making the decision not to voice them is heart-wrenching for them. They're not stopping voicing these characters because they're just like, well, I don't want to work. You know, that's such a stupid argument. Bro, these jobs literally make up the livelihoods of so many people. The logic of I don't want to work is crazy. Right, exactly. These voice actors love these characters, okay? Trust me, the player base will not care, and just how people swap to JPVA because the people will still play the game if they love it regardless of all the stuff happening. Like how most people in HSR 3.0 story swapped in JP because there was no voice through. That's the thing. That's crazy to me because the 2 people that weren't voiced was Dan Hung and Himiko. That's not everyone. That is simply not what happened. To address that point, I don't know how to tell you that maybe fighting for the fact that a voice actor is trying to be able to get job security is important. I don't know how to tell you to care about other people. I don't know how to tell you that like not giving a shit about people says more about you than it does about the world around you. I am gonna get 300 angry comments from a lot of people saying like, well, these voice actors actually don't care. Like, I don't care about the voice actors or the strike. Like, I just want to hear my favorite character. I don't know how to tell you that maybe you should have empathy for the voice actors that are currently voicing your character. Genuinely, not everything's about you. Not everything's about your convenience. These voice actors are fighting for protections so that they can keep working. Am I upset that my favorite characters are not voiced? Yes! I fucking love Dan Hung. I love Himiko. Of course I'm gonna be upset that they're not voiced. It's for a good reason. The strikes are not supposed to be convenient. The strikes are supposed to be inconvenient so that it makes people notice them. Trying to give us all the information. I'm trying to give you guys as much information as possible. And remember, I am just a person that yaps. I do not have all the information. Some of the information I might say is wrong. Do your research. Please do your research. That's all I ask. Look into what other voice actors are saying. Think with nuance. Think critically. Do your research. And then make your decision.